Hey guys, Christopher here.
Hey guys, Noah here.
If you've not seen our latest video, Stark Saloon Echoes of the Past, you're missing out.
You are. So go watch that, like, right now.
We might be a little biased, but it's epic.
Probably. Just a little bit, just a little bit, yeah.
It's
I
really good. What you did with it's amazing.
I appreciate that. I'm very critical of it. As I am kind of all my videos. There's a lot of things that I liked what I did about it, and then there's a lot of things that I really don't like about it. And it's a few different layers in the sense of some of it is just obviously something that we're working on right now, which is better equipment. The cameras that we're using, they're not the best of quality. The mics aren't the best of quality, but that's something that I don't want to spoil for people, but it is something that we're working on, that improving that. And but yeah, there's stuff like that. There's also, like, I kind of had the conversation with you about too, is one of the things that I like about it was the way I did the intro. I do like the intro that I did, but the intro I think can be so much better, because one of the things that we don't really do a lot, and it is because I think we just are so involved in this storyline that we're in right now, that we kind of get too excited about just going out and doing things, that we don't really spend the time to talk about the actual history of a place, or even just talk about where we're at in a certain timeline of things, is like what the hell is going on, because we obviously have a lot of conversations about everything that's going on, because we're sitting there trying to figure out, okay, where does this fit in, where does that fit in, what is what. And you can't film all those things. Like, literally sometimes we'll just be texting back and forth about ideas that we're having, and those aren't on screen. And so I feel like there's parts of the story that are really being missed in that sort of realm. And that's where I've started to put a lot of thought into, how do we remedy that, how do we fix that, so that way it only improves upon what we're already doing. Because that's the thing, like, I'm very self-aware of my current abilities and my current talents and stuff like that, and it's sort of like I'm just trying to get better, and how I do that is learning from my mistakes. So I do think it is my best work yet. I do like that I seem to be getting a little bit better each and each time that I'm doing this, but I'm also still very, very critical about what it is, because I'm trying to look at it from the perspective of, how can I make it even better.
Well, I think you should always be that way. I mean, we're still going in 20 years. You should still be critical and looking to
Right.
make it better. Why not?
Right, right. I fully agree. But this one was such an important one for a multitude of reasons. And I think, to kind of thoroughly explain what was going on, I think we need to kind of start with you, because you had been there, before I had ever even heard of the place. So I'll kind of let you start with this story.
Had been there. I've been there 3 times in total to actually investigate and connect with what's there. I was one of the first people to investigate Stark Saloon after it was purchased by the current owner.
Oh, wow.
Before that, it had never been open for investigations as far as we know. So I'm just going to leave that at I was one of the first ones in to investigate.
Wow.
So, a little bit historically, do you mind if I go ahead and
Yeah,
tell the
no,
history
go
a
ahead.
little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, late 1800s, early 1900s, that building was owned by John and Jane Stark, and it operated as a saloon. And upstairs, there was a secret brothel that was not so much a secret.
Hmm.
During the time John and Jane were there raising their children, Jane had become overwhelmed caring for the children herself and asked for her sister to move in to help take care of the children. And John agreed. And it wasn't that long afterward that John and the sister had an affair.
Mm-hmm.
And when Jane found out about it, all she wanted was for her sister to leave. I don't think she made a big deal. She just wanted her sister to leave, and it was agreed upon. And after the sister left, John took Jane out on the town so they could show everybody that they were fine, everything was great, and then they went back to the saloon. And in front of a bar full of people, John stood there behind the bar and first shot Jane and killed her, and then shot and killed himself. And to make things worse, the two of them were then buried in the same grave, just down the street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, aside from that, there's some other really interesting history there. In the 1980s, a man and his grandmother lived there, and he locked his grandmother and her dog in a room for a year. The neighbors saw the grandmother throwing dog shit out the upstairs window one day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when she was rescued. So that woman didn't die in the house. She was rescued and moved into an apartment or assisted living or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also been known periods of squatters, people living in the underground. I'm going to call it a crawl space instead of a basement.
Right. Right. That wasn't a basement.
But when the current owner purchased it, there were just bags and bags and bags of clothes down there, just all kinds of personal belongings in that crawl space.
Ugh.
With the slugs.
Yeah. That's disgusting.
Yeah. So my first time going there, I walked into the kitchen, and it's as clearly as I'm seeing you on the screen. I saw Jane Stark standing there at the stove, and I just knew it was her. And she was screaming. She was running her hands through her hair. She was screaming. She was in an extreme amount of distress.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so uncomfortable. I didn't want to go back into that kitchen again. I'm like, this doesn't feel good. This is painful. I don't want anything to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
So we're walking around the rest of the house. We go upstairs, and I'm noticing that there's locks on the outsides of the bedroom door. And I start thinking about the grandmother who'd been locked in a room. There were multiple rooms, though, that had locks on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking of back in the brothel days, they would have probably locked their kids in their rooms so they wouldn't get out and wander into the brothel, which was just down the hall.
Right.
One thing that I'll never forget, somebody had asked me which room I thought the grandmother had been locked in. And I picked the bedroom most across from the brothel. I'm like, it was this one. And they said to me, how do you know? And I said, I feel it. I can feel her, even though she didn't die here. I know this was it. So later on in the night, when we went back to actually investigate that room, we closed the door, and the whole back side of the door is just dog claw marks all up and down the door. So I was right. That was the room they'd been locked in. My next encounter with Jane that night was down in the basement. First, I saw two children playing underneath the house. And then I saw her run down the stairs, having the same experience she did in the kitchen, just running her hands through her hair, screaming, crying, kicking the walls.
Mm-hmm.
And the children were frightened. They didn't understand what was happening. I don't even know exactly what led me down this path, But by the time the night was over, I'd realized that Jane Stark was profoundly psychic and she didn't understand her psychic abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So as the night wrapped up, I had connected to her and told her there are going to be so many people like us. When I said us, I meant she and I, both being psychic, coming here, and you can help them further their experiences. You can connect to them and be your authentic self. You can start to really embrace who you were. Now you understand it. Now you can do something with it, even from where
Right.
you are now. And by the end of the night, it just felt really good.
Mm-hmm.
So the next time I went back, it was like she wasn't there. I didn't see her. I didn't feel her. Nothing. Everything that came through that night was either personal or it related just to John. It's like she was not there. We got a few things from the brothel, but absolutely no sign of her.
Right.
And I remember being really sad about that and thinking, why am I sad? Maybe she finally escaped this prison. Why is this making me sad? It makes no sense. And that, of course, was right around the same time you started to have things happen. So I'm going to let you take the story from there.
Right. So, this was about, let me try to think timeline. I think this was around early October of last year.
And that's
So,
exactly when I went there and
yeah, so,
she wasn't there. So, yes.
so yeah, I think this was like right around early October of 2024. And I'm actually sitting in the living room of my old house. And I'm sitting there, and I start to get this kind of feeling that I get whenever I'm in a haunted location. I'm kind of like, okay, the energy has shifted. Something feels different, and it was so weird because I'd never had that happen in my house before. I never my old house wasn't haunted. I never had anything follow me home. Like it was just, you know, it just wasn't haunted. And so I was feeling this in my living room, and I'm like, well, this is strange. And at basically the exact same time, my dog starts barking in one of like a random corner, and I was like, okay, this is weird. And so I was like, hey, I just bought this brand new piece of equipment, the Envoy box, and I was like, this is a perfect time to test her out. So I got it out, and I set it on the yes and no mode, and I also had one of the phone apps open as well, just to kind of again give double confirmation because I like doing stuff like that. And I have it out, and I'm asking questions, and I'm like, "Hello, is somebody here with me?" And it pretty much immediately goes yes. So I'm okay. So I start going down this sort of road, and I start asking questions, and I was like, "Are you male or female?" I was like, well, I was like, "Are you male?" No. Are you female? Yes. Oh, okay, cool. And then I'm going the obvious route that most people I think would go is I'm starting to think of like people that I've had in my life pass away. And I'm like, oh, is this like a relative that's come to visit me? And so I start asking those type of questions like, hey, is this my grandmother? And it says no. I'm like, okay. Are you related to me at all? And it says no. And I'm kind of like, oh, okay. So then I think, oh, obviously, my wife lives with me, so maybe this is somebody for her. So I start asking that, like, okay, are you related to my wife? And it says no. So now I'm really confused, and I'm like, okay, what is going on here? So then I start asking questions like, did you die around here, or like, did you die in this home? No. Are you from this area? No. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. Why are you here? Not to be rude about this, but I'm just curious, like, why are you here? And on my phone app, it says just checking in. I was like, oh, that's cool. And again, I was kind of like, just for confirmation on that, double confirmation, if you're just here to kind of check in and see if everything's okay or, whatever, they could go yes. And it goes yes. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, and I got a really good vibe. Nothing was bad. I got a really good vibe about her being there, and so I was like, oh well, thank you for coming to visit me today, and I really appreciate talking to you. Feel free to stop in anytime and chat with me. I appreciate you being here, and everything stopped. I wasn't getting anything else, and this started to occur more and more often in my house, where I would get that feeling, my dog would start barking randomly, and I'd get my stuff out and I'd keep asking questions. And the weird thing was, she would never give me her name. She wouldn't give me any information about her. She would just come in and she would check in and talk to me for a little bit and then she'd go. And I found this really, really strange. And I didn't quite know how to explain it. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know really what her purpose was other than checking in, and I'm kind of sitting there confused because I'm like, well, if you're not somebody that knows me or my wife or specifically what she said, she wasn't related to me. And I kind of look at this differently now as we continue this story. But fast forward to months later, and this is after you and I had officially gotten together and created Crooked Path Paranormal, which that whole story is a really cool one as well. We've kind of told it before, but I'm sure it'll get told at a later date again as well. But we kind of get together and we create Crooked Path, and we're going to a really cool location known as the Bill Manor, which is actually our very first series, which is kind of symbolic in that sense. But it's our very first investigation in the sense of it's actually filmed and it's out there. You can go watch this. And towards the end of the night, I had this question because obviously I'd had all this stuff going on in my house and I kind of wanted answers about it. And so I we were doing a Ouija board session, and the spirit in which we were talking to, I asked them, I was like, hey, do you do I have some sort of attachment, to me? And that's what's at my house right now. And the planchette sort of goes in the middle of the board. And I remember you're like, when I see this, I interpret that more as it's not a yes or a no. It's more of kind of you don't quite have the right word, or you're not quite looking at it the right way. Something's missing here. And so I was kind of like, okay, well, if it's not an attachment, what would you call it? And that's where it spells out guide. And that's where that film ends and everything, and that's really where the night ended right there. And I'm like, what? That's so weird. And this is one of those things that I think, take it with a grain of salt, but you had this idea right from that moment, and you're like, I think I know who this might be. You just had sort of that clairsentient moment where you kind of just knew it, and you're like, I think I know who this is, but because of the way that guides work, I'm not allowed to tell you this information. And that's where it sort of later unfolds whenever we go to OSR, and she then introduces herself, and that's where the moment was kind of like, oh, you were right, it is her. And from that moment on to the point I'm at now, it's just been an unfolding story of how I've gotten more and more connected with her. And while I won't give a lot of that in the sense of you're actually going to see it on screen kind of unfold, but Stark Saloon was the first really big point, because OSR and the way that I connected with her, and even Madison a little bit, um, it was more of just, I knew who she was. I knew that she was supposedly my spirit guide, but it was more of tests. And the thing that I've learned for sure is that when it comes to spirit guides, their number one thing is that they're there to teach you something. They're there to guide you on your spiritual journey. So they're there to put you through these tests in order to strengthen your own sort of connection to the universe in spiritual enlightenment and stuff like that. And it's really, really interesting the more and more you dive into it. But Stark Saloon was really the first big point into understanding who Jane was to me specifically, why she was my guide, and actually connect with her more on an emotional level rather than just sort of a talking back and forth, you're guiding me down a road.
Right. I don't even entirely know what may have happened that very first moment where I thought to myself, this is Jane Stark. This is his spirit guide. I don't even know what it was that why would I ever think that? I mean,
Right.
there's no reason in the world for me to ever come up with that on my own.
Right. And that actually kind of goes back to my point earlier about that's one of the things that I want to find a way in improving, because what we just talked about is not on, it's not filmed. You know what I mean? That sort of moment before any of this had happened where you're kind of have this eureka moment and stuff, that's not filmed. The conversation afterwards about like, man, you were right. Those kind of things aren't on screen because they're not filmed, and I wish they were. So that's kind of back to my point of I think if people had that sort of information beforehand, it would even add to the experience of understanding why certain moments were such a big moment. And that's where again it's just, we're not perfect, obviously, and we're just trying to get better and better as we're doing this stuff. So that's why I like constructive criticism. You know, to as everybody does to an extent, everybody likes constructive criticism to an extent. But yeah, it's just you're trying to get better in what you're doing, because that's really what I want to do is relay that to the people in the best way that I possibly can. But so to kind of get on track with the actual night that we spent at Stark Saloon, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you to kind of start, because it really starts with with us being in the brothel.
Right. And I went in that night feeling like there is a sense of unfinished business up there. I had not spent a considerable amount of time up there. And part of it is because it's just so damn uncomfortable up there.
Mm-hmm.
Being up there
Yes,
does not feel good. It's oppressive.
it's very bad up there.
My first night there, something rushed me. I had a friend up there with me who kept getting drawn to the window, and she felt like something was wanting her to jump out the window. Just,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nothing good nor productive had come from my time in that space.
Right.
But by the time I got to my second visit, it was clear that there were a number of spirits that were attached to that space that had a very difficult history there. And whether it was up to us to help them move on or not, I don't think it is. That's not what I go to these places to do.
Right.
There was still something that could be done to help them.
Right.
So that's when we got into who are these women? What are their names?
Right. I think the way in which that unfolded too was watching that back. It was so cool because obviously we start with just the one name, and that was Mia.
Right.
We start out with Mia. Mia, who's is mainly who we actually conversated with, and for what reason I'm not 1,000% sure why. I think we could sit here and talk about maybe why that was
Right.
forever. But that's just who was able to come through and speak with us. But to watch that back and sort of as we were sort of empowering her and the other ladies up there to sort of step away from that oppressive nature up there, the way that the names just started coming after that was so cool. Like literally even the moment as soon like we're standing there and the moment we kind of decide that hey, we're going to leave, we get a name. The moment we step out of the thing, we get another name. And it was just, to me, watching that back, it was so cool. And I think it meant so much because like it actually was a feeling in the way that like I felt like we were really helping. And because especially like what were the chances that we're asking for names, and the only thing that's really coming through the necrometer, other than responses to certain things, are female names. There wasn't even a male name put in there, and I thought
Right.
that like it's such a huge coincidence. That's like for me that was reassuring what I was feeling in that moment, and it was so
Right.
cool, so
Yeah,
cool.
that whole experience, especially after watching it back, is something I'll never forget.
It was so cool, and I didn't even remember it being that cool. I did not remember it being that cool, and I don't know if we were just so caught up in the moment, but I just remember watching that back, and I'm like, oh my god, this is cool. This is so cool. Like
No,
the
I agree with
evidence,
you.
the evidence that was there was just like, oh my, it was so cool. I love that segment right there.
Same. I think part of why we didn't realize how cool it was is just the stress of being up in that brothel. It's just so uncomfortable.
It was heavy, really heavy. Like, and again, it's like there's not too many places that kind of shake me in that sense, and I don't even want to say that location did that, because even being up there, I wouldn't say it was that bad, but it was very uncomfortable up there, and it sort of did like put you at ease, or not at ease, but sort of it it stressed you out just being in that space.
Yeah.
It stressed you out, like especially because like the thing that I thought was cool too, you can't really hear it from the camera's perspective, but when we were up there, to kind of put this in perspective for people, like we really could hear something like physically shuffling in the corners as we're kind of pointing that out, and it was creepy because it sounded like there was some sort of animal, something up there, and we ended up flat like shining a light in the corners to make sure that there actually wasn't like some sort of raccoon or something up there with us, because it was so. And like I was so upset because the camera didn't quite catch it, but like it was so loud in the moment and being up there that it was freaky.
It was. That was unsettling.
Yeah, for sure. The next section, which is titled Chapter 2, One of Nine, is potentially, even though it doesn't really, it might not feel like it in the film, it's probably one of the most important sections to date.
For
And
sure.
because, and again, this is back to, I'm probably going to say it 100 times because I really mean this. It's a part of this entire storyline that we're currently still working on, but to date, I feel like we've been kind of lacking in the ability to tell the full what is going on, and that is something that I'm currently remedying, or trying to remedy, in explaining that story to where from start to finish it makes sense. So that is something that I'm currently working on to improve how to get that on screen better. So we're not having to constantly like do this where I'm like, unfortunately, I know it doesn't really quite make sense, but I'm trying to make it make sense. Um, but I think even for what was there and what is on screen from the past uh, film series, I think it still does make enough sense that people will be able to grab on to what we're talking about, because Bill Manor is the very first section that kind of talks about it, where we're talking about this theory about these 9 different locations and 9 different entities and stuff like that that are the shadow figures. Fast forward to OSR, and we're talking about these different portals that we've accidentally unopened that then actually tie into the 9 figures. And then obviously we have the biggest reference, that is the monkey room itself. We yet again reference the monkey room, which is going to basically be taken care of in the next film at Fairfield. So I think there's enough there that people are still able to kind of like understand a little bit of what's going on and kind of keep up with the story. But I think it's something that we need to focus on, really making sure that that entire storyline is told in the proper way, because it is such an interesting story that is still unfolding to the
Right.
present. But watching that back too, and seeing where we're at now, knowing where we're at now, compared to that conversation back there, it kind of blew my mind a little bit, and it kind of got me excited for the sense of there's so much again that people are going to be seeing unraveling in each of the episodes.
It's amazing.
It is, so it is back to the point, like, you got like I you got to watch all the series. You have to watch them, and you have to watch them in order, because it is very much like there are things that are separate, as all investigations go, but there's those little moments that happen that tie in and all these different stories, and then it gets even deeper later down the road, and it's really really cool. And so that's where it's kind of like, hey, you don't have to binge them all at once. Take your time with it. But I'm really like, really watch all those episodes.
Absolutely.
And then so the next section is obviously where we go down to the crawl space, and we connect with Jane on a much more personal level. And obviously, because that was a little bit more of my experience, I will talk about it, but I kind of first want to hear from your perspective what was going on, or you can even kind of explain what we were even doing in that crawl space, because for people who might not know what we were doing, it kind of looked like we were just standing in the middle of a crawl space, you know.
By the time we got down there, I had this sense that it was not just random that Jane ended up being your spirit guide, that there was some very deep personal connection.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we got down there, I even had it in my head that in a past life, you'd been one of her children.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to just throw that out to you. I wanted
Right.
you to experience it instead of me just saying it. Because I felt, well, first of all, I felt like if I just came out and said it, you'd have looked at me like you're full of shit.
Right.
And I wouldn't have blamed you for saying that.
I feel like that would be a natural response from anybody.
And I wouldn't have been mad. It just, so that's why when we got down there, I was so deliberate in the questions I was asking you. I was using a style of hypnosis down there. I didn't do a full hypnosis session, but that's what I was doing. I was using a style of hypnosis to take you back, put you in that space, and see what came through. And the first question I'd started with, I believe, was, have you been down here before? You can take it from there.
Okay. And so this is the section especially that I am fully aware, as people watch this, that I can understand people's skepticism, because I have no way to prove it. I have no sort of way to convince anybody that what I was saying is true. And really, in a way, even though that I, in my own mind, know that what I was saying was true, I have no way to really, really know, other than I felt it. And it's such a weird thing to tell somebody, in the sense of, I'm standing there in a crawl space, and I'm a using clairsentience to just know the answers to what I'm saying, but B, I'm feeling it. I'm really feeling it in my heart and my soul that what I'm saying is not bullshit. It's true. And so take it with a grain of salt. I understand people's skepticism, and it's okay. I fully understand this, and I fully think that people need to be skeptical about stuff like this. Because if I was to tell you, like, hey, go into everything that I'm saying as like 1,000% fact, I'll even tell you you're crazy, because I don't take anything that anybody says as 1,000%, truth. I try to look at multiple different sources and see if there's any sort of patterns to add up. So just take that with what I'm saying, because I'm trying to be as genuine as I can with this, because it is a little bit more on the far-fetched side of paranormal investigating. But with that being said, so I'm standing there, and you're asking me these questions about, if I've been there before, and I kind of get this. I started getting this vision of a little boy, um, and in this crawl space, and I'm like, yes, I feel some sort of connection there. So I'm even going to go as far to say that that was me. That was me in a past life. So I'm like, yeah. So we kind of are going through it. And literally, as we're going along this story, and I'm connecting more and more with what was actually happening to Jane, I started to feel it. Like, and first of all, I'm not a person that, likes to show my emotions all that much. And anybody who knows me knows this about me. But I'm not somebody that's super comfortable with kind of expressing those type of emotions in front of people. But I'm a grown man standing in a crawl space just talking through this event that's going on in my head, and I'm literally starting to tear up, and like I feel like I'm getting ready to cry because I'm so emotionally attached to what is going on, through this, what we're talking about, and what I'm seeing in my head, what I'm feeling in my heart. And it was so strange, even because this was the first time I'd ever really experienced anything like that. So it was very strange to be down there and be doing this. And there were certain things that like popped into my head, when you asked me what my name was, and I kind of sort of like, I think she called me Johnny, because what I didn't know historically was that the oldest son was John Stark Jr. I did not know that. So looking back and kind of saying, I think she called me Johnny, and then you basically telling me that like the oldest son's name was John Stark, that hit me really hard, because I was like, I think that was me in a past life. Um, and so then what hit me even harder was, as we're I again didn't know that I did not know the history of that place at all. And I'm basically seeing, and you're telling me the history at the same time, this image of the affair, and then John essentially killing Jane in the saloon area, and it just hit me. And this is the part that like can't be, I don't know if it can be proved historically. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll have to look into this. I don't know. But I'm getting the vision, and if any of what I'm saying is true, then this part is true as well. I in the past life not only was there but witnessed this all transpire. Like, I witnessed my father kill my mother in that past life. And that sort of then leads us into the last bit of what the episode is. And I'm really trying not to like, I'm really trying my hardest not to be like the person that's just talking this entire podcast episode.
No, this was so personal to you. I get it.
There was a
This is
lot, there was just, yeah, because the next part is where the
I
thing
do
that
want to
I've,
throw one thing out there, though.
yeah,
When you talk
go,
about you were standing down there and
yeah,
you
go
were
ahead.
just feeling all of this, how
Yeah.
many times previously at other locations where Jane was starting to come through for you did she tell you, feel it? That was her answer to you.
That is very true. And that's a good point
So
to point out.
that was leading you up to that moment, too.
That was my very first test that people can go back and watch at OSR. We're sitting in that sort of hall area, and that was one of the main tests that she wanted me to experience, was feeling it. She
Right.
wanted me to feel it, because there's this sort of layer of being psychic. Well, we'll just put it at that. Being at any level of psychic. There's there's a level in which you won't be able to necessarily prove it to anybody else, because only you know what you're feeling. And I feel like there's probably some people that can sort of understand what that means, in the sense of sometimes you just feel something and you're just like, I know this is right because of the way I feel. This is hitting me in a way that I know this is correct. And that's kind of what I was experiencing. And hell, even the feel it thing, that's still something that she's working with me on, because I have a very hard time just going with my feelings and how I feel about something, because I am such a person that wants validation on something I can prove. I can 1000% prove what is going on. That is just how I'm wired. I like to have that sort of proof, and that moment of like, that's it, case closed. And with something like this, you can't have that. So you kind of just have to trust that feeling. And so that's something that she even tells me to date that I have to trust a little bit more. But so yeah. And another part that I've sort of learned through this, that when it comes to all this stuff, emotions are so powerful and so important. And that was where, even though it was kind of, I don't want to say hard, because even though I'm there and I'm connecting with what is going on, I'm in this lifetime. You know what I mean? That's where I am and everything. So, but I get this feeling that I'm like, I think in order to put things right in that place, I have to speak with John directly, who at this point in time we were led to believe that he was my father in the past life, and was really the cause of all the anger and hatred that I had in that past life. And so I had to sit there and sort of let all of that go, and sort of let him know that, like, while nobody's going to forget what you did, you can be forgiven. And I can forgive you, and you need to forgive yourself. You need to let go of all of this sort of negativity that's surrounding you, because nothing good comes from negativity. And so that's that's in everything. Everything that we do as people, nothing good happens from negativity. And so
Right.
we have to find that layer of ourselves to not necessarily forget, but forgive and move on. And I feel like it's a lesson in which we need to learn to better ourselves, even if it's not for that person, if it's just for yourself, you know? And I think that was a lot of where I'm sitting in the saloon and I'm talking to him. I think that was for a lot of those reasons, mainly for me being able to kind of let that chapter go and just let it be. And moving into the very last section where we had this feeling
Well, I just want to
that,
say too that when you were in the saloon talking to him, I didn't go in there with you. I gave you
yeah,
space to do your thing. I felt like that was, I mean, obviously it was recorded and people are going to watch this, but I felt like
right.
you just needed your space in that moment.
Hmm.
And when I did watch it, I cried. I really did. I cried. I
Wow.
thought that was super emotional, and I thought the way you handled it was beautiful.
I just went with my gut on it. I kind of let the words come to me in the moment. I just sort of sat there and really let what I think needed to be said, and I just went with it.
It was amazing. Go ahead. Go with what you were going to say. I
Oh,
didn't mean
but
to cut you off, but
so it just kind of leads into the last part, which is so for anybody that doesn't know, first of all, we have this sort of theory. It's not us. It's actually a very wide known thing, but it's not necessarily the most popular thing. So maybe you haven't heard about it, I don't know, but there are these entities, as I like to call them, that have the term egregore. And essentially, what an egregore is this theory or idea that a spiritual entity, not one of the physical realm that we live in, but of the higher dimension, the fourth dimension, is I like to call it, that we're never a physical being, but can be manifested out of emotions through energy and stuff like that. And so they become intelligent. They literally are manifested and are intelligent and basically become beings that are fully aware of everything going on and think for themselves and stuff like that. But their nature is based off of whatever they were created from. And we believed, based off of what we had just experienced and what we had kind of been told, was that I had unintentionally in that past life, through all of the hatred and anger that I had towards my father, I had created an egregore of nothing but hate, anger, sadness, just all of these negative emotions that I had felt, and I had created an egregore in that moment. And so we go up to the bedroom in the back. And this is one of those things that wasn't filmed, unfortunately. So I think we kind of mentioned it very shortly, but before we ever started filming, we kind of did like just a little walkthrough of the house, and we had went to that back bedroom, and we both in like as soon as we got in there felt physically sick. Like the energy in that bedroom was so horrible that we couldn't even stand to be in there. We like left immediately. Like it sucked so bad. Um so we were like, that's where it is. That's that's where it has to be done. So we went up there with the intention of dealing with what was there. And for me, I think it was actually my first time performing what was happening. And because you have a lot more knowledge and experience with what I did, I'm actually going to let you kind of explain in more detail what I actually did when I was up there.
Essentially, first of all, I can't believe how intelligent the conversation was
Hmm.
between you and that energy.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, I know I couldn't hear you. I don't think I was quite as far gone as I get now.
I mean, yeah. Even if we're just like just on base level, the way that the Estes method works, you that through the headset you can't hear me. So even just
Right.
on base level, when anybody does the Estes method, the headset is so loud that when you hear that static from the radio, you can't hear anything that anybody's saying. I could be next to you yelling and you're not going to hear me. You're not going to know what I'm saying. And then obviously you can't see me either. So there's that layer of it too. But obviously when you do it, it's a little bit different because of your psychic abilities. But just on base level, take it at that. Like
Right.
how intelligent that conversation was, and you can't hear me or see me. So
So going into what you actually did, through your conversation with it, you were taking away its power. You
hmm.
were taking away what you gave it.
Hmm.
And now that I think about it, you're the only one that could have done that since
Right.
you're the one who created it. And many, many times over the years, when I've encountered an energy like that, something that needs to be taken care of, disposed of, put to rest, I like to use metal railroad spikes to
Hmm.
disperse of the energy. Interesting that I worded that the way I did. I'm going to
Hmm.
file that away in my brain.
And I think for people that are they're probably asking the question of like, well, why do you use a railroad spike? Like, what does that do? Can you kind of like maybe explain that a little bit? Because that's a little bit more I feel on the side of like the witchcraft side of things, to where like people aren't going to know what these things represent or why they work in that sort of mystical way. So I feel like that needs to be kind of explained as well.
Well, the iron itself already holds a ton of power.
Hmm.
But when you think about what that spike did and all the energy that's gone through it and around it and over it, it's an object that's just supercharged.
Hmm.
And it's easy to take and put in the ground for the purpose of getting rid of something or returning it to the earth, where maybe it'll be transformed into something useful and go to the earth, who knows. But to me, it's just one of the simplest and most effective objects because it's supercharged with energy.
Hmm.
So once we got to a point where you had weakened it, essentially, it was time to get it out of there and put it in the ground.
Yeah. And for those that are watching this, this is again a thing that I can't really explain or prove or anything like that, but or I can explain it, but I can't really prove it. It's that even beyond like the sort of like in the moment, obviously I was told it's time to go. You know what I mean? Like I was physically told that, hey, go, it's time. Um, you. you can feel it. The energy that was then trapped in this spike, like my hand started to burn, like I had a burning physical sensation. It also, like, my arm was heavy, like the spike was literally heavy in my hand all of a sudden. And so, like, beyond this sort of, like, we were kind of told, like, hey, it's time to go, I could feel it. And that's where it was like, if you're not somebody that's ever done that, it's hard to understand, but it was intense in the sense of I didn't want to hold this thing forever. So I literally just get you out of it really quick. Like, hey, it's time to go. And watching it back too, because I remembered this happening, but it was more funny to me because, like, the way I kind of just dismissed it so easily. You get out of the room and then you scream essentially because you had seen something.
That's a
Um,
good way to put it. Something. It didn't appear to be a someone. I don't know what the fuck I saw,
yeah.
but it
Um,
was so unexpected that I couldn't not react the way I
right.
did.
And then I'm just sort of, because I've got the camera and I've got the spike, and I'm like, I'm essentially almost running down the stairs. I just sort of dismissed that. I'm like, we gotta go. We gotta go. I was so focused on just getting out of that building and getting this out of there. And then you did something for the very first time. You held the camera. You were the cameraman for about all of, like, 20 seconds, but it was the first
I want
time.
a t-shirt.
Yeah. Hey, you officially made the camera crew, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, as I'm getting ready to bury this thing, I'm like, what am I gonna do? And I'm like, all right, you just gotta hold this for a second. You gotta film me for a second because I can't do both at the same
Well,
time.
I'm not afraid of holding the camera, so anytime you need me to do something, just ask. I'm
I
not going
know
to
it's
yell at you, and I'm not going to say, fuck no, I'm not doing that. Just
I know it's just not it's not what you do in the sense. So that's where a lot of times I'm also very picky about my filming. And that's towards myself too. I can't tell you how many times I've been editing a video and I don't like my own shot, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, "You idiot. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is a horrible shot." I can't tell you how many times I've done this. I'll be sitting there staring at my own work and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, this is a bad shot. Like, what am I doing here? But that's just with the realm of trying to get better and critiquing my own work. I'm sitting there like, oh, this is horrible.
I get that.
So I'm kind of picky with my cameras.
So now
But
up to that ending.
yeah, yeah. Which I'll
It's
kind of,
obvious we've got more to do there.
right.
And I feel like where that really started to come through, did we even film that?
What the, what part?
Where
Like,
where we were told I was there in that lifetime too. Did we
oh,
even film that? I don't think we
I
did.
gotta remember. I think I don't. It wasn't filmed there. I know that for sure.
I didn't think it
I
was
think
filmed for some
maybe.
reason.
I think maybe it was filmed, but I think it was like way later because that wasn't information that we were given until later. But it might not. It might also not be, because it might also be one of those sessions that we did where, like, the one I'm thinking of where it might have been said was the session where I was driving us back from Crescent Sanatorium, and I was like, I have a lot of questions, and I was like, well, Jane's always with me, so we should be able to do a session where she talks to me because she's always with me. And so I had you in the passenger seat,
I'm
passed
laying there
out.
like this.
Yeah. And we were told, I think maybe we would have been told that. And I think it was just casual because I was asking questions as far as, like, how many lifetimes have we supposedly lived together and stuff like that. And coincidentally enough, the answer was 9. So then I sort of pieced that together and I was like, oh shit. So you're basically saying that these 9 shadow entities that are connected to us are from these lifetimes. And that's where she basically confirmed this. So that was where it was like, oh, so we were told that Stark was one of the locations. So does that mean that was one of the lifetimes that you had lived in it? And she said yes. And I think she said that you were like a family friend or something. So I think the reason we need to go back there is actually to essentially uncover what specifically your role was in that lifetime, because I think that's the piece of that lifetime that we have to know before we can actually close that individual one of nine,
Hell yeah,
essentially.
because whether we need to know or not, I want to know. I'm
Well, I mean, right. No,
curious.
I agree with that, and I understand that, but I'm just saying, even in the sense of like, I think we have to in that sense, because in dealing with these nine different chapters, I'll call them, um, we sort of have to, which this is where too, like back to my, like when I was talking about like I'm trying to remedy how we sort of make this entire crazy storyline make sense. I think what I'm maybe envisioning moving forward um, is I'm going to start making more of, rather than separate film series, I'm sort of going to make one big sort of series, in the sense of there'll be like different seasons, and each season will have episodes that are sort of all drawn together. That's kind of what I'm envisioning. I hope I can make it come together the way that I'm envisioning it, but I think that's going to end up making this whole experience that people are watching on screen so much better and make much more sense.
Right.
So we'll see. We are currently working on making that a reality and making that work. But to kind of give a little bit of like what's in store coming up. Again, shout out to our number one fan, at best, just absolute best person in the world, Kim Ashworth. Um, get ready, because your episode is the next one that's coming out very shortly at Fairfield County Infirmary. So it's been way too long since you did that with us that it hasn't been on screen. It has to be out there. So it's coming out very shortly. So get ready for that wild ride. And not only is it, our awesome investigation with Kim, but it's also the conclusion to the monkey room, which has been referenced in most of our stuff at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for this.
I am too. I am too. It's going to be really good, or really interesting, at least. I can't say good, but it'll be interesting.
Shit, that might be an understatement.
It'll probably be like Stark, where it's only one episode, but that's what I'm thinking
I think that makes sense.
based off of what we have. I think it'll be kind of like Stark, where it's just one singular episode. But I'm not gonna lie, I did kind of like the way that it was just a singular episode, because everything was just a from start to finish was one complete story. I did kind of like it in a way.
Yeah, it worked. Either way, it works.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's
Well,
about it.
yeah. I was gonna say I think that's just about it for this episode. I hope everybody enjoyed. The Stark Saloon Echoes from the Past. This is really truly an honor to be able to make this sort of content for you guys. I hope you are enjoying it, and if you have any sort of constructive criticism on what you want to see for us in the future, please leave that in the comments. We really want to know what you guys think, what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see us do maybe a little bit more often. Just we really want to know, because we want to give you guys the best experience that we possibly can while we further our own paranormal research. So yeah, just let us know. But as always, it was fun explaining this story to you guys. I can't wait to get to the next adventure.
Absolutely.
All
All right.
right.
We'll see you guys later.
See you guys.